In today's video, you will see the worst Porsche paint defects I have ever seen. And it happened to two different $500,000 Sport Classic 911s. It was actually the worst OEM defects I've ever seen in any car ever. But don't worry.
Help is on the way, dear!
Thankfully, the car was shipped to status detail and received a 5-figure detail to make both cars literally better than brand new. I took care of everything, including full body STEK or STEK PPF. Here is a brief overview of what you can look forward to. You're not going to see many $500,000 cars get delivered to me on a flatbed truck like this, but this car was local and was only about 40 minutes away from us, and it was just easier for the customer to have it sent to us versus having him drive it to us because he was kind of a busy business owner himself. I definitely still have customers in the greater Chicagoland area and just over the border in Michigan, Indiana, and Wisconsin. But the majority of our customers, I would say around 90% of status detail customers, come from the entire United States, meaning they come from outside of Illinois and they ship the cars in. As I've mentioned in other videos, I highly recommend you use Unlimited Auto for transportation. They have been wonderful to work with, and they have enclosed trailers that are very high-tech, state-of-the-art, and will move your car from anywhere in the US to status detail. This 911 Sport Classic was a launch spec, meaning it was in sport gray metallic, which is an awesome color that looks a lot like chalk, but it does have a gold metallic that's a little bit hard to see in the lighting in the shade, but in the light in the sun has an amazing cool gold metallic to it. This was also an exclusive manufacturer car, so this has some really specific cool options, and it had an exclusive manufacturer interior, which is just unbelievable. It's probably one of my favorite interiors on any 911 that I've ever done. This car was shipped basically directly to me. You'll notice on the dash there it only said the car had 19 miles. You'll also notice that even though it has 19 miles, the car is a little bit dirty. Nothing crazy. It's not covered in dirt or anything, but it did have a little bit of dirt on it. I'm pretty sure the owner of the car told the dealership not to wash it, not to touch it. So the defects I'm about to show you are just what I noticed when the car first came to me. I hadn't even washed it yet. The car wasn't dirty enough that I couldn't see through the dirt and kind of see what I was dealing with on the paint. So you can see we have some pretty serious swirl marks on the lower part of the rocker panel here. This is hard to explain how or why this stuff happens. The worst defects up until this point anyways was probably on the rear wing, where if you catch the light just right, you can see really serious holograms. This is usually from sanding and then polishing with a rotary afterwards. So there may have been some dust nibs or some kind of imperfection that the manufacturer tried to fix during the manufacturing process, and they usually just don't do a great job of refining afterwards, and that leaves kind of these really hazy, spiderwebby kind of holograms in the paint. And shockingly, people keep commenting that new cars don't need paint correction. I did notice a fairly large scratch on the passenger side door. Once again, this can happen several different ways. It's not unfixable, so this is totally a thing that we can remedy. It's not a big deal. It's disappointing, but these are the things as why we tell people, you know, try to have as few people as possible touch the car, because this probably honestly got scratched maybe at the dealership, maybe in transport. But I have a hard time believing it probably left the manufacturer that way in Germany. That probably happened sometime between the keys hitting the customer's hands and when it left the Porsche factory. Now, several months apart from each other, I did a gray sport metallic Sport Classic, and then I did this black Sport Classic. Now, both of these cars are going to have these horrendous defects I'm going to talk about in a minute. We're going to get to that. But both of these cars did have general swirl marks and just issues in the paint, which would be frustrating to anyone who just bought a car this expensive and this exclusive and rare. Throughout this video, I'm going to show you some comparisons between both cars, and the main reason I'm going to do that is a lot of people see some of my videos and I think that they think the stuff that I show is like a fluke, that it's like, oh, it's a one-time thing, it only happened to one car. That's why I'm going to show you both of these cars and how they both have very similar defects, including
Identical.
defects that are horrendously really bad stuff you don't want on your car. So we'll get to that in a second. Some fast proof of that is that there is compound residue on the rubber seals in different spots of this car. And again, this car also only had like 15 or 19 miles when it came to me, so no one touched that car before me. This is a quick set of pictures of the clay bar from the Decon step on the Black Sport Classic, and this is a lot of stuff for a brand new car that has basically no miles on it. So it's very nice to see that this car is in really good condition. So there are some problem spots, right? Like that's typically how it is. So I think it's pretty funny that I literally just filmed something that I probably won't put in the video of me going, the car was in pretty good shape, because I had the lights off and I was walking around it looking at everything. And then I found this, and this is almost a depressing thing to find on something so expensive. But I'll probably play some footage over this for you to see. The hood is completely trashed, like 100% disaster. There's pitting and like etching in the whole hood. I put test spots of film over it, like PPF, just little scraps, and I can see the defects through the film. If you get lucky, sometimes it'll cover it, but it's not. So I'm gonna have to like spot, you know, sand like probably like 50 spots, which more or less just means I have to wet sand the entire hood to fix it. And it's very frustrating. I don't like doing this. I don't like necessarily making videos where I'm like, hey, look, this car is like completely trashed and it's destroyed and it's a disaster. But you know, they do get views, so there's that. But it's really unfortunate, and I've said this in so many videos, and this is just another one. Like, you gotta paint correct your new car, guys. There's almost always problems. It's way too bad to even consider putting film over it. It's honestly almost bad enough that I would tell the customer, like,
I send it back.
You need to bring this back to the dealership, repaint it. But the paint match might not be perfect if we do that, so I would rather wet sand it and just fix it than kind of make it the dealership's problem, because I honestly don't trust the dealership to kind of fix it to the way that we'll probably fix it. But yeah, paint correct your new cars, bring your car to status detail, we will fix it, we will take care of these problems. And this is kind of why we're so busy with Porsches, because people trust us with cars like this to find problems like this and then correct them. The completely insane paint correction process you are about to watch is... There are very few detailers who will do, let alone show you, what I'm about to do to this car. And because of that, this detail basically...
It's not on the elemental chart.
As I started to work through the car and fix things, I started to notice that the defects were on all the panels that had these stripes on it. It was the exact same on the Black Sport Classic, but also on the Gray Sport Classic. We started sanding this car very slowly and through all these spots, and in some spots we had to leave defects alone, and I just didn't go after them, I didn't chase them. This is where a lot of experience comes in, of wet sanding and paint correction experience for about 10 years now. If a defect like this is anywhere close to the edge of a panel or the edge of where we're seeing a masking line, which is also near an edge of a ridge in the body panel, I left it alone. You cannot chase something like that because the clear is so thin in an area like that that to fix it, the likelihood of a burn through is through the roof. So our expectation was to try and fix this car to like 95 to 98%, and then anything left of the film would probably fill it in. So I'm actually not sanding to remove everything. I always say we sand to improve, not to remove. And that is the story of my life on this car. I don't necessarily need to remove these defects to 100% perfect. I just need to remove them to like 97%. So when I put PPF over it, the PPF adhesive is pretty cool, and it'll actually fill in a crater if it's not super bad. And that's what we're going for here. So an inexperienced person might try and say, hey, I want it perfect, and they'll fix everything, or attempt to fix everything, and by accident they'll ruin everything. So this is a huge reason why people ship cars to me, and this is a huge reason you need someone really technical and experienced to be able to tackle a job like this, because this is not easy from a paint correction like theory standpoint. It's a really complicated, like a Rubik's Cube thing that you got to unpack and figure out, and then tackle it a really specific way in very specific steps, going least aggressive, working your way up, and just seeing what's possible while we're also not trying to burn through and ruin the panel. So it's difficult to explain, and I hope I explained it well, but this is complicated, and you don't screw around with something like this unless you know exactly what you're doing. So I was really, really glad to see this car showed up at my door and not somebody else's, because I was the perfect person to try and fix this. I treated every spot like a unique defect that needed its own care. You don't necessarily want to just attack the whole thing with a sander, because some of these spots might only need like 10 seconds of sanding to fix. Some spots might need like 4 or 5 rounds of sanding to fix. Now, these are just some in-progress shots that I wanted to show, because it's difficult to show how many defects the car really had, but this kind of gives you a little bit of a scope of work of what we're dealing with. It was a lot. It was like literally the entire hood, top to bottom, left to right. It was bad, guys. This was a really, really bad situation. You have to keep in mind, as I'm going through this, I keep finding more and more. I'm just doing progress shots as I'm going through it. So this is, at this stage, how much sanding I had done. And even after I did all this stuff and I paint corrected it out, I had to go back again and paint correct it again, because you have to remember, guys, I'm doing this very carefully, which means I'm sanding here, but I'm not sanding so deep. So in a lot of these spots, I can still see the defect through the sanding. But that's because I know I need to go back and compound really, really, really aggressively to remove these sanding marks. In the process of doing that compound step after this sanding, I'm going to be removing more clear coat, and I don't want to burn through that clear. So I can't just sand until I remove the defect and then compound, because there's a really high chance you burn the clear on the compound and the refinement side. So you have to remove the defect like 70% and then hope the rest of your refinement removes the last amount of defects, so you get to that 95%, so we can PPF over it and still maintain enough clear that we have a robust clear coat that we're not going to rip off one day when we pull the film off. So this is complicated, as I've mentioned a few times. Now, I've been doing this kind of stuff for a long enough time that I can kind of gauge how much clear I'm removing in the process of doing all this. That's why I was able to go back a few times in a couple spots and sand more and then do a compounding step, and I did that a few times. If you're being careful on your first, second, third attempt at that, you know you're not removing too much. If you go crazy on the first sanding step, then it gets a little hairy because you're not sure. A lot of people are going to be yelling in the comments, use a paint depth gauge. You got to remember, guys, paint depth gauges don't work on every panel, and all the panels that I'm sanding on this car, the roof, the hood, and the trunk, the wing in the back, they're all carbon fiber. Paint depth gauges do not work on panels like this. Now, as I'm doing these compounding steps, it gets a little difficult to see where the sanding marks are, because I start to get to that 70-80% where I'm getting the sanding mark almost all the way out, and then it's really hard to refine them. So you can see I'm putting dots of compound on areas, and that's basically to help me re-identify where it was, so I compound the right spot, because I don't want to just compound huge areas. I want to compound the really specific spots that I sanded, and then when I'm done with all this, I re-compound and polish and jewel the entire hood just to make sure everything is perfect and uniform. So this is a cool shot of a sanding mark that's been refined but not all the way out. I see this and I show this on my channel all the time, because this happens at the factory level. They remove dust nibs typically, or maybe defects like the ones I'm removing, and they polish and compound it down, but they don't get it all the way out, and they leave these marks, and I show these to you guys all the time. You're seeing me live do the sanding, and that's why we get these marks. That's how they happen. And in this case, I can show you what it looks like after you do it full circle. So you can see the sanding step, the refinement step, and then the actual full refinement where I go back with a light and you just can't see it anymore. This last step is what the Porsche manufacturer is missing when they do dust nib removal and things like that. You're just seeing me do it start to finish all the way. For some reason, all the manufacturers can't seem to figure this out, because we routinely end up getting their leftover sanding marks that they almost remove, but not all the way. And that's one of the reasons I was using those dots of compound all over, to identify those spots so I did not miss them. I'll tell you what, these were hands down the worst defects I've ever seen in paint, and it's kind of burned into my memory. I don't think I'll ever forget it.
Ooh, memory burn.
And as you're seeing me polish this particular part, you're going to notice that I find another defect that's on the quarter panel. I believe this was kind of a nasty dust nib that I realized was going to need to be fixed, unfortunately. We had already sanded so much on this car that sanding one more spot wasn't the end of the world. This customer did select basically the highest package that I offer. including my full body PPF. So when you do the most expensive package I offer with my full body PPF, that's kind of just like a we're going to fix everything to the best of our ability package. So once the car was all squared away and everything was back on track, we did repolish the hood, and I did a jeweling step as well. This is a step that really maximizes the gloss and really just makes the car look that dripping wet, you know, unbelievable gloss. This is really like the secret to making your car look incredible, and this is a secret that so many detailing shops skip, and basically every dealership will skip. Dealerships will tell you they're going to paint correct your car, but I got news for you guys. No one's going to paint correct your car the way that you just saw in this video in a dealership. That's never going to happen. This car had a really large vinyl sticker on the outside. Now you can PPF over this, but you do get a bit of an air gap. Now on some cars and some colors, that air gap can actually look kind of good, and on some colors it can look kind of bad. The bigger question is, do you want the protection of having, you know, the PPF over this, so if you get a rock chip, it doesn't chip the vinyl? That's more of an important question than the air gap part. Now what's important to mention here is that the way Porsche installed this vinyl sticker, they installed it over the factory PPF, which means that for me to install this sticker correctly and to install PPF correctly, I need to remove the OEM PPF on the quarter panel. But when I do that, I'm going to rip off part of the vinyl sticker, which is really unfortunate, because if he had wanted to keep this vinyl sticker, there'd be no way to actually do that, because PPFing over the OEM PPF would just look completely terrible. Vinyl stickers like these are only sold in sets of the entire sticker, so I can't buy just 20% of the right side of this sticker. So it's kind of unfortunate the way they install it. I'm not necessarily saying they installed it incorrectly, but the way they did install it makes it impossible to, you know, save it. You have to remove the entire thing at that point. Now, in this particular situation, the owner of this car said he did not want to put the vinyl back on. He just preferred the look of the car without the vinyl. If you're asking my personal opinion, I totally agree. I don't really like vinyl on my cars. I don't like stickers on my cars. The only thing I let fly would be like a Porsche badge on the front of a 4RS or 3RS where it's a, you know, it's a sticker, or like the badging on the back when it says GT4RS, GT3RS, and it's vinyl on the back. But even in those situations, honestly, I'd probably still remove the badge or the vinyl on the back bumper of those cars as well. Also, an important note, the brand new 992 GT3RS, the badge on the hood is actually under the clear coat, so even better that you don't have to worry about it. I just cleaned like all the dust off the car, and I always show that to show you, and it's unfortunate because there was a lot of dust, like way more than normal because of the wet sanding and everything, and then there's like actual like sanding dust from like the sanding process. So I'm really sorry I didn't catch that on camera, but I can show you a couple things around the car, like in the trunk jam, with the frunk jam and stuff like that. It still has dust in it, but take my word for it, there was a hilarious amount of dust, and the car does need to be washed now outside. And this wash, as we've said in other videos, is very important because we're going to do full body PPF now, so we got to make sure we get rid of all this dust and make sure the car is squared away. As I was working on the car, I started to notice little things like lots of dust on the interior. Multiple different areas and different spots of the interior just had like kind of a thick layer of dust on it. And again, this is why you detail your brand new car and you bring it to a guy like me. On a quick side note, again, God, the interior of this car is amazing. I love it. This tan color with the, it's perfect. I love it. It's probably one of my favorite Porsche interiors I've ever worked on. And again, when I'm working on these cars, I notice lots of weird things, and this kind of stuff always drives me crazy. I always fix these rubber seals. They're very, very common to be kind of sticking out the wrong way. It might be because delivery wrap is stuck in here or something. I'm not sure how this stuff happens, but almost all the 911s I work on, there's rubber trim out of place somewhere, and I always fix it. I do my very best to read all the comments and, of course, respond to all the comments. I've even had people tell me that like this is a fake channel or something because who responds to all the comments? Well, apparently I do, because I do try to respond to all your comments. But the point is that I see a lot of people asking for like a music interlude, like you want a break from the talking and you just want some music and some video of me doing something to kind of like break up the video a little bit. And I kind of agree with you guys, so I'm going to give that to you right now, and I hope you enjoy it.
You cut me open and birds of a feather, we should stick together. Birds of a feather, I love you till the day that I die. Keep bleeding, keep bleeding alive. Keep bleeding, I keep bleeding alive. Keep bleeding, keep bleeding alive. You cut me open and I keep bleeding, keep bleeding alive. I keep bleeding, I keep
I rarely remove anything from cars when doing PPF, but in the 911 world and GT4 RS world especially, we always remove the window trim. It's very, very easy to remove that stuff, and it just makes the installation way smoother. You'll also see here that there was a seam cut for the mirror, and this is an older video, remember guys, so this was done quite a long time ago, and I'm just kind of catching up on my editing now. So I berth all the mirrors now. Like on 99% of the cars, we will literally like slip the film over the mirror, so we do everything seamless now. This is not necessarily a wrong way to do it, but the other way, the berthing way, is just a much cleaner way, and it's a much more difficult and technical way to do it. And for anyone who might be curious, I still use STEK film. I don't talk about that in all my videos, but it's still the best film that I've found. You'll see here we're wrapping edges, and wrapping edges is hands down probably one of the most time-consuming things that we have to do. It seems easy enough, but if you try and do this prematurely, basically the film won't stick. So you have to let this dry out for a long time. I'll even let it be the last thing I do at the end of the day, and then leave it overnight, and then first thing in the morning I'll actually wrap these edges because they'll be super, super dry. When you put them down dry versus a little bit wet, they tend to stick a little better, but I'm still going to go back over every edge that's wrapped for probably 2, 3, 4 days maybe with a heat gun and reheat and re-push them down just to make sure they're perfect, because we really don't want anything to peel back. And depending on the angles and things like that, sometimes those things do want to peel back. And you can see once that trims back in, it's like completely invisible on the upper part of the door, which is obviously very high visibility. Now, same thing with the fenders. Like I mentioned with the mirrors, Paul does the fenders with a seam by the headlight. Now, this is not a wrong way to do this. That just means that the film is not being stretched as much, which also means the film's a little more durable. I do it seamless because I give the customer the option, and the customer virtually always chooses the seamless route, which means, again, this is a very technical, very difficult thing to stretch and get on the car in this fashion. So there's no right or wrong way here. There's just, do you want to seam or do you not want to seam? And 99% of the time, all of our customers choose the no seam option. Now, one of the big differences between doing this black Sport Classic and doing the gray Sport Classic is that, you know, obviously the colors are different, but the panels are all laid out the same way. They're all the same angles and all of that, but black shows more than the lighter colors do. Just like when you're doing paint correction, those swirl marks and things show more. And same thing with PPF, like when you have a adhesive line or a stretch line, or if I have to go back for a speck of dust after 20 seconds of the film being down and I have to peel that back and get that out, that will show way more of a line on a black car than it will on a white or a gray car like this car, like a light gray, we should say. So on that black car, we really had to have our, you know, our head on a swivel, and we really had to be on top of spotting things and stretching correctly when we're doing something like the quarter panels, because it will show marks more. So the other car, the gray car, is much more forgiving to us as installers, which is why, you know, it matters what color the car is. And you'll hear me ask that question a lot if you call me, because I'm always curious what color your car is. But a really important reason why I'm asking is because depending on the kind of car you have and how complicated the PPF job is, if that car is also black, it's going to make that car really difficult to install. And then you're going to see some more, you know, wrapping and tucking, and it's kind of an endless thing because we really do our best to do this on every panel that we can. Now, some panels are not going to be able to be tucked, and that just is what it is. But if we can tuck it, we're going to, and if it can't, it's going to be cut as precisely as possible. And you'll see some stretching on the roof here. You know, a lot of these panels look easy, and you think you could just put the film on and squeegee it out, and that won't work. You do have to stretch virtually every panel you do, and once you stretch it out and kind of get it to like stretch and contour into the grooves of that panel, then it actually is pretty easy to squeegee it out. So stretching 99% of the time is the hardest part of, you know, kind of getting the film attached to the car and getting it installed correctly. So stretching actually is probably one of the most complicated things to learn how the film stretches and how far you can stretch it, because you can definitely overstretch it, and stretching the wrong way or the right way will make your edges wrap harder or easier. So the stretch is like a huge part of the theory of, you know, understanding how to do PPF. Squeegeeing is its own thing, but, you know, you can also do too little, too much pressure with a squeegee. You can squeegee surprisingly, you know, it's squeegeeing sounds easy enough, to be honest, but it's actually another thing. You can squeegee wrong, and that can cause problems, but that's for another video. You can see when I'm doing this bumper, it's a little hard to see here, but there's a lot of stretch on this bumper, and if you don't stretch the bumper correctly, it becomes very, very difficult to do the bumper in fewer pieces. Now, some bumpers just require them to be done in more than one piece, but lots of pieces that are being plotted with unnecessary seams and relief cuts, because if you just bulk it and stretch it, you can basically, not do those relief cuts. And that's, again, why stretching is so important. Now, once all that stuff is done, I've done quite a lot of heating and prepping and making sure everything is stuck down. And once we're good to go, we jump into our ceramic coatings here. So for people who have been watching the channel for a while, you're going to notice I'm using these big foam blocks now. I do sell these on the store. These are my preferred way of applying a ceramic coating. I used to use the Geon block with like a suede thing that goes over it, but this is way better. It's easier to use. Most importantly, it contours to the panels of the car, and they're very, very inexpensive. They're one-time use. If you're looking to do a ceramic coating on your personal car, definitely check out these. I usually use this yellow gold one for EXO, and I use the red one for my base coat. And all of this stuff's available on the store if you're interested in doing this kind of stuff. Very, very difficult to PPF your car DIY at home. You can't even buy STEK or STEK film privately for personal use. You have to be an actual detail shop to get this stuff. But the ceramic coatings are much more approachable, very DIY friendly, and they're all available on the store. So it's one of the cool things that if you watch me do this stuff and you want to try it, you totally can. PPF is very, very difficult, and it's not something you can watch me do once and then just jump into tomorrow. Now, I said this a couple times in the video, but this car is basically brand new and at very low mileage, and you can see even the bolster of the driver's side seat had a lot of dye transfer going on, and there's a little bit of a scuff there. And this is a lighter color, and this is like very supple, natural, really amazing leather. It's very different, I think, than the standard leather that goes in any Porsche. Like, this is a much more high-end luxury leather, and I think because of that, it's like accepting dye and transfer of dye way more than any other car. So the guy who was getting in and out of this car, the drivers, the people at the dealership, they probably were wearing jeans if they were wearing new jeans. And this is an important thing for anyone to know. If you're wearing brand new jeans, they will transfer dye way more. So if you have a crazy expensive car like this, don't wear new jeans in it. Wash them first. You're going to cut down a lot on the dye transfer just alone with that. But in general, as I showed you earlier in the video, there was lots of dust and stuff in the car. So it was definitely time at this stage of the detail to just do a once-over of the interior. I'm not doing anything too wild. I did like a quote-unquote deep clean of the spots that had dye transfer, but of everything else, I'm doing a very, very light cleaning. When you see me using that Detail Factory brush, the one that looks like a makeup brush, that's a very light cleaning kind of thing. If I'm using the actual Geon leather brush, that's a little bit more of a hardcore, deeper clean. You can vary your pressure and all those kinds of things to, get the desired amount of clean and that you need, because not everything you're cleaning, especially on a brand new car, needs, like a really in-depth, deep clean. Some of it's just kind of getting dust off, getting the top layer of dirt off. And then you'll see Gtechniq L1 leather guard going on here, especially for a leather that's so soft and like porous and that is accepting that dye transfer so much. It's so important on this kind of car and this kind of leather to do something that's going to be some kind of leather protectant on it. L1 is very approachable. It's definitely something you can DIY at home. And for all the people who are wondering, yes, it does not alter the leather. It doesn't make it smell different. It doesn't make it feel different. And that's one of the main reasons I've chose this actual product, is because it's just so user-friendly and it does not alter anything from an OEM finish or look or feel or anything. Now, I want to just show you how much crazy stuff's going on in the interior. The floor mats are really cool. There's crazy amounts of leather. Everything you're seeing on screen now is just all the leather. So all of this stuff on other cars is either piano black or sometimes it's carbon fiber, but like all of this stuff around the vents, the actual vent slats are literally made out of leather. This might have been the most leather I'd ever seen on the inside of a car. Especially for a Porsche. So this thing was optioned out really, really high in that exclusive manufacturer interior with these colors, plus like all the upgraded leather package stuff. It's just, it's really cool to see. When I work on so many Porsches, it's a little bit cool to be surprised every once in a while by seeing something so unique and so cool, because they start to look a little bit alike after you've done, 10, 20, 30 of them. But this one was special. Thank you guys so much for watching this, and thank you so much for being a part of our channel, because we have 32,000, almost 32,000 subscribers on YouTube now, which is awesome. I'm going to try real hard to get more videos out to you in 2025, and in 2025, I'd love to see us hit 100,000 subscribers. So to make that stuff happen, we have to have you guys like, comment, and subscribe. If you think someone might enjoy this video, or you think it might be an interesting thing for the forum that you're a part of, share this kind of stuff on Facebook, share it on a forum. platform. That's the number one way that we're going to grow, and the channel will gain subscribers, because lots of people are always asking, like, wow, these videos are amazing, why don't you have more subs? Well, the main reason is because I don't release videos as often, which I'm going to work on next year, but also you guys can help a tremendous amount too if you just want to share it with somebody. And I'm sure the 32,000 strong Status Detail fans that are already subscribed are yelling and chanting on their sofas right now. And as I've mentioned many, many times before, if you're interested in a status detail and you want me to do your car, I would absolutely love to help. The best way to reach out is just to jump on statusdetail.com, and you'll see a contact us button. You can call me, text me, email me. You can even go on Instagram and DM me on Instagram. I'm very fast in responding to all forms of contact. It's always a great idea to let me know if a car is coming, even if it's 3, 4, 5 months away. Just reaching out and letting me know so it's on my radar will definitely help me schedule you in a very convenient and fast manner once you do have your car. But that's going to wrap it up, guys. I have more videos coming soon. I think the next video I make will probably be on a 911 Dakar, and then we're going to jump into some Ferrari content. So thank you so much, and I'll see you in a video very, very soon.